Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and if I'm at all honest, I'm just making this video so I can connect with you guys for a bit and say hi. I don't think I need much more reason other than that, especially right now, but just wanted to be honest. And now that 80% of you have clicked off this video, well, crap, that backfired. I do have a decent point all the same, which is to discuss some stuff you can expect of our conversations about Doom, and in case Doom isn't your thing, then maybe its lore at least will be. I know that the gameplay, the pacing, the storytelling isn't something everyone can get into, but I think, especially around on this channel, anyone can appreciate the lore and depth that id Software has crafted over the years. For instance, I gave a bit of a teaser last time to look over the manuals for the original games, and so we'll read over a couple snippets from them. When you're comfortable playing the game, try using the keyboard and the mouse. Wait a second, no, that's the wrong... There we go. The story so far. You're a Marine, one of Earth's toughest, hardened in combat and trained for action. 3 years ago, you assaulted a superior officer for ordering his soldiers to fire upon civilians. He and his body cast were shipped to Pearl Harbor, while you were transferred to Mars, home of the Union Aerospace Corporation. The UAC is a multiplanetary conglomerate with radioactive waste facilities on Mars and its 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. With no action for 50 million miles, your day consisted of sucking dust and watching restricted flicks in the rec room. For the last 4 years, the military, UAC's biggest supplier, has used the remote facilities on Phobos and Deimos to conduct various secret projects, including research on interdimensional space travel. So far, they have been able to open gateways between Phobos and Deimos, throwing a few gadgets into one and watching them come out the other. Recently, however, the gateways have grown dangerously unstable. Military volunteers entering them have either disappeared or been stricken with a strange form of insanity, babbling vulgarities, bludgeoning anything that breathes, and finally suffering an untimely death of full-body explosion. Matching heads with torsos to send home to the folks became a full-time job. Latest military reports state that the research is suffering a small setback, but everything is under control. A few hours ago, Mars received a garbled message from Phobos. "We require immediate military support. Something friggin' evil is coming out of the gateways. Computer systems have gone berserk." The rest was incoherent. Soon afterwards, Deimos simply vanished from the sky. Since then, attempts to establish contact with either moon have been unsuccessful. You and your buddies, the only combat troop for 50 million miles, were sent up pronto to Phobos. You were ordered to secure the perimeter of the base while the rest of the team went inside. For several hours, your radio picked up the sounds of combat, guns firing, men yelling orders, screams, bone cracking. Then finally, silence. It seems your buddies are dead. This was the first time we heard about Doom and the background for it. I think it actually gives a general idea of what we can expect with newer stories that even exist today. I mean, in this brief few-paragraph look, we have an idea that there is a military on Earth that holds and answers to some bigger corporation called the Union Aerospace Corporation, or UAC for short, which our friendly neighborhood Doom guy gets caught up in for being the moral compass of the military. Bet you didn't see that coming, considering the brutal nature of our Doom Marine. But I've also changed up the name of Doom Guy a couple times now, haven't I? Well, that's something that the game has done several times as well, but it seems as the future will be going on with this universe, Doom Slayer is going to be the go-forward name for him. Working up the proverbial ranks of brutality or something like that. You might hear me say Doom Guy once in a while, it's just a habit, but they're the same Marine. Slayer. Person. Anyway, there is also something to be said of the whole of id's catalog. I talked about Wolfenstein and the history surrounding that, but the more I look into some of the newer titles for Wolfenstein, the more I may actually have to pay attention to and look through them. So I'll be looking into getting those titles when I'm able. I have limited information per this point, but the idea of time travel, or more specifically dimensional travel, is sounding more and more plausible with every entry I read, with Hell and some of the other surrounding realms that exist in the Doom universe being a linking point to them all. Being vague for reasons, of course, but I think that sets up my thoughts somewhat nicely before we really get into things heavily. But then you get into the hierarchy of the demons. I'm sure you could have figured that existed to some degree, but the question is more how it exists and to who they serve, if there is anyone that they ultimately do serve. Over the years, we've learned of ages of hell and great battles that seem to change and alter how they are viewed. There are a couple of linking factors with the older titles, especially Doom 64. But Beer, Doom 64 isn't canon. I will completely and utterly disagree, as what may not have fit into the story before? Well, either they worked it in to make sense, or it just makes sense in my mind. Your call on that end. After looking around on the internet, I know that there's some pieces missing for this puzzle. I'm happy to know that through Eternal's gameplay and lore, all the pieces I had considered are falling into place very nicely. Again, being vague, I can't give my secrets out too quickly. Let's just say that the Slayer that we know isn't the only character that we know of throughout all of the titles, or at least isn't the only figure that we see portrayed in them all. With id going for a more singular character as time goes by, it's starting to make some kind of weird sense in my head. I almost feel like the time link talk we've done with Destiny has prepared me for this moment, for a timeline that actually makes sense. Granted, Destiny's makes a weird kind of sense to me too, but with more, you know what, just moving on. As always, I hope to bring my certain flair that I have with stories to you guys, but I will keep doing as much research as I can, cross-checking things and making sure I don't screw something up on a series I very much care for. And quite frankly, if I don't know something, I'll just tell you, I don't know. I hope to also not make you cringe too much with the gameplay that I capture, as, well, I've been getting my reflexes back slowly as I've been able to play the game heavily the last couple of days, but oh boy, if I'm not rusty as hell. Right now, I think I'll be able to clear the game once I'm done editing this and tossing it together. I ran through it once already, but I know how I am with looking for secrets and all that noise, so I decided to play the game once through without recording it. So, with the second playthrough about halfway done, I think. The game's pretty long by today's standards, I'll say that. First round, I think, took me about 16 hours total, with me goofing around and dying a whole bunch because this sucker is hard on ultraviolence, at least for my aging old man reflexes. I say this more to give you an idea of when we'll start covering the lore and story stuff, since I am pretty much stay at home for this point and can 100% focus on this stuff for the time being. Give me a couple days yet and I'll have something to start us off. Maybe a dossier or something. Still thinking that through. But if you have any suggestions, let me know. But speaking of, that leads me to the last piece. Doom theories and thoughts have a bit of a limit on them, as almost every game does, of course. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn, Devil May Cry to some respects, several other titles, of course, pretty much everything. Destiny is a weird case for what we've been covering for the last few years here. I'll be trying my best to work with what we have, but I would not expect 3 years or more worth of content as Destiny has supplied me with. In some regards, however, having those theories stew for a while to see payoffs in another 4 years or so, well, that has some power in and of itself. And if I'm still doing this when the next Doom comes out, then we'll be able to look over those theories, cross-check, and have some more fun. For as they say, Doom is eternal. I didn't mention the character stories that we can dig into as well, along with the history and development of weaponry within the franchise. Not just use and how brutal you can kill your opponents with, but how each weapon is developed, put together, and for what purpose, outside of just killing, or what really spawned them. For instance, the plasma rifle, that's a fun one. You'll quickly find a key phrase through it all, however. Argent. At the height of any society, heaven and hell stand to balance those that could rise to overtake them. But standing against them is one man. Should he fall, we are doomed. Alright, got that pun out of the way. I'll leave things there. Is there anything you guys are interested in hearing about first and foremost? Are you also playing Doom Eternal? What are your thoughts on it if you are? And to the flip side, if you're not interested in Doom at all, what about it makes you not interested? I'm genuinely curious to hear your takes on everything and anything you may have to say, as always. Lastly, if you're new here and would like to be part of future discussions, you know the big red button to press and all that other YouTube junk. You hear it enough. But regardless what you do, I hope you're all staying safe and okay. To all of you, no matter when or where you are, I'll see you next space time to rip and tear. Take care.